not been in this dungeon for quite some time. Probably some years. Can't even remember the last time. Like, not at all. I wouldn't bet on it, but I think the last time I was here was in probably Mists of Pandaria. Maybe? Has been fucking ages. Oh no, it was. I'm not sure. Was it Mists of Pandaria? The Legion? I don't know, but it has been a few years, I think. At least a few years.
I must get closer.
When you have his easy mode, Ryan has access to a taunt to guard break at the wall for big damage. Oh, we need an easier version of this because this is DLC. In comes Fakumram. And you've seen what he does with his easy mode guard break. And of course his busted hitbox, say no more. Armor King is not a busted DLC. He's the opposite. But that's because he's a legacy character. Legacy characters are allowed to suck and be crap. Legacy character. Noctis is not busted. A pro player would say, oh, big weaknesses. And they're correct. He does have weaknesses. He doesn't have a dick
He's
jab.
extremely
Chokes
easy
somewhat under pressure, although he has a nice parry. And a down for two out of the blue will catch you. But he's a DLC character, so he must have something right that breaks the game a little bit. Well, what's it called? The engine sword. The aura. While running 1+2. Down back 2. He has a 50-50 that for most people is unseeable and has 3 times the range of any other mix-up in the game. Literally. And there's 0 execution. It is mash buttons. Again, a character that will carry any player, no matter how limited your own talent is, and no matter how little time you want to put into the game, he will carry you. If you want some data on this, there is a lot of data that has been collected by players, but we can just take my experience. I've been playing Kazuya for, 25 years. I tried desperately to get him to Tekken God Prime. Many characters I struggled to get to Tekken God Prime. He was my first Tekken God Prime after having played him for 4 days. Do I have to say anything else? Probably not. Eliza is weak, but she is allowed as a DLC tools and rule-bending utility that throws everyone off. A competitive player will dominate on Eliza, but Eliza will dominate everyone else basically, because everyone will fall to the matchup, because the matchup is so weird and you see her too seldom to learn it to a satisfactory degree. Geese Howard is, in my opinion, arguably the worst example. Leroy is the worst example of balance in terms of output to efficiency. Geese, you actually have to put in some work, but when you've put in that work, you have a character who is a joke. I love Geese Howard. I think he's a really cool design. He's the coolest character from King of Fighters. I'm so happy we brought him to Tekken, but he's a joke. So, in Season 2, he was, in my opinion, the best character in the game, better than Akuma, so they needed to do something with him. And we thought he got a nerf, down for 2, all his neutral tools got worse, but then they were like, so in compensation, he should be able to do more with meter.
Oh.
So you know what, that 2 forward 1 max mode, 2 forward 1, let's give him a guaranteed combo. He used to have a 50-50 mix-up and a wall bounce, but let's straight up give him a guaranteed launcher with the Moon Slicer. So what this means, of course, is that when Geese Howard has a meter, he gets 95 damage without a wall from a 15 frame standing 2, or a parry, or a well-timed jump kick, or a counter hit while standing 1. He has multiple ways of doing this. And his wall travel is some of the best in the game. So when he lands a standing 2 on you with 1 bar, and there are walls, no matter where he is on the stage, and I want you to understand that I'm not exaggerating here, this is accurate. No matter where on the stage he lands that standing 2, you will be wall combo. So if there are walls, you should see this as like 120 plus damage, and then you trying to desperately wake up and stand up at the wall against a character who has ridiculous wall pressure. So I don't understand how anyone sees that as balanced. It's like a joke to me. It's a joke. Anna, 50-50 mix-up machine. Super strong against anyone except competitive players. Marduk, for some reason, got, Gigas. Forget about Marduk. He's not picked a lot. For Tekken 7, we need something fresh. In comes Gigas. We failed horribly. No one likes the design, basically, and he has no identity. What's that? No personality, just a mindless grunting machine. And his gameplay isn't terribly interesting. Okay, bring back Marduk for Season 2. And again, the right choice. People like Marduk. But what's up with his damage? What's up with Marduk's damage? The ground throws at the wall? What the hell is that? Rage Drive? What is the combo damage? Why does Gigas have a down back too? that does what it does and is minus 14. Marduk has the same thing. It's minus 12, and on counter hit it does 60 damage and floor breaks. Can someone explain that to me? No, you can't? It's... Oh, and his tackle. I mean, his tackle, it's Marduk's identity, he can keep that, but... There's just so many ways where I just don't understand. This is the the Tekken 7 vanilla Marduk. He's useless. But now we have a DLC Marduk, where people actually pay some extra cash. And he's a complete fucking monster in comparison. Yeah, Julia, another DLC character. Absolute monster. Absolute, probably the best female character in the game. It's either her or Alyssa. But Alyssa, anyone can play. Julia is technical. But if you have the execution and the mind games, I think Julia is the best female character. And her combos? Who balanced her combos?
Nobody.
I don't understand. What?
That's who.
Take the biggest stage in the game and put two of them next to each other, you know, so you double the size of it. She can still wall travel wall to wall, basically. Zafina is also basically a joke. Oh, let's give her the best movement in the game. Well, until this guy came along, Zafina had the best movement. Just absurd. And of course, absurd mix-ups, 50 snake edges, devastating wall combos. Well, some of the best win-loss ratio in the game. Everyone gets destroyed by Zafina. So yeah, again, if you want to win, pay for Zafina and no one knows the matchup. Just dominate everyone. It's like Sonic Fox is a genius, and he got a Tekken character to Tekken God Prime in very short time. No matter the character you play, that is incredibly impressive, and hats off to Sonic Fox. But I wasn't too surprised when I heard it was Zafina. I was like, oh, okay, no one knows the matchup. Oh, Jesus. Thanks, Shank.
Is starting the game with Kazuya.
People don't know the matchup. You get away with a shitload with Zafina. I didn't have trouble getting her to Tekken God Prime, and I'm no Zafina player. Had he gotten a Mishima, Steve Fox, or Brian to Tekken God Prime, I would have fainted in comparison. That would have been incredible. Well, it still is incredible. Ganryu is a DLC character. Ganryu in the old games, he's very oppressive. He has some crazy frames up close. He has some range issues, but he has some crazy frames. But now he's a DLC character. People are gonna pay money. What do we do? Oh, let's give him another bullshit gimmick stance with crazy 50-50s. And you know his old back forward one? Where he steps away and then slaps? That should back turn. But not only on counter hit, but on a normal hit. And it's mid. Boom! Back turns the opponent for a 50-50 that launches. But most people, no one knows Ganryu. How many times have you fought Ganryu? You know, so what you do is he gets pretty much always 2-1-2 after back forward one in the back, and you've just lost. You've just lost. Oh, you know what? People paid extra money for this character. You know what he needs? In his dumbass pressure stance, he needs an unblockable where he goes super low, dodges everything, and then he sumo runs in 10 meters and shoulders you very fast. And it's like you get hit by a rage drive, like Paul's rage drive. You fly 1 kilometer into the wall, and you get that wall bounce, you know, from any range. And this is the balance of DLC characters. Do you see any of these guys doing shit like that? I tell you, honestly, I thought about this. I tell you, I thought at first people were exaggerating, saying Tekken 7 DLC is pay to win. But the more you see of it, the more you understand that those characters are allowed tools that other characters don't have.
Now keep an eye out. I'll have this link in 2 shakes of a... Warning. Life force active. Archival processing terminated.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it seems to have finally happened. An eShop game seems to have pushed Nintendo just a little too far, to the point where Nintendo seemingly pulled it down off of the eShop. Yeah, we're going to go over that one today and the very strange set of events that appears to have unfolded here. Also, we now know really what the Xbox Series X, maybe Series S, we'll see, but the box art looks like, and well, it certainly leans into Microsoft's plans and their strategy going into next gen, and those mystery SKUs that always seem to pop up at GameStop, well, more seemingly have popped up, and we'll talk about what that really means, if anything, going into what sounds like a rumored Nintendo Direct in about a week or so. As always, guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure to hit the like button, helps out a ton, and if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below as we head towards 500.
Oh. My birthday. Oh my god, my birthday just started. I didn't even notice that. I'm stupid.
I didn't have a target. I require a target. I need to target something first. I didn't have a
Oh wait, is that why my phone made noises? Somebody noticed?
I need to target something first. Too far away.
No. 9.
Turning out a whole mess of these iron grinders. I'll use the forge to make patches of earthen to stand guard. But our greatest challenge still remains. Find and stop Logan.
Dang it.
Hello. See you around.
Hell out of here. Watch your back.
The item is still recharging. I'm out of range. I cannot attack that target. I cannot attack that. I cannot attack that target. I cannot attack that. I need to target something first.
What mongrels dare intrude here? Look alive, my brothers! A feast for the one that brings me their heads!
I must get closer. of range.
Ranulf of the Screaming Abyss, snuff these majestic darkest nights.
I must get closer.
Tor of the brutal siege, bestow your might upon me.
Too far away. I require a target.
Five levels. If it can finally judge other people. I already can, but the nice judging, of course.
Talk to me.
How are you? See you later.
Sounds like Nintendo is not curating the shop, and I really don't think they are that well. They do have a lot of things that have to be checked before the game can appear on the shop, okay? And I'm sure at some point in time, they look at what the game is, right? They don't have a very strict curation in terms of content, but they definitely have some requirements you have to meet for the game working and being patched and all of that. That is a thing, right? It goes back and forth between publishers, developers. Some games have been delayed at times because of this, and it just has never really been said publicly, unless it's like a patch they're trying to push and they're like, oh, we're waiting to hear back from Nintendo to approve it. But I have a feeling, due to the situation right now with COVID, and we of course hear the remote work, I'm sure there was a point in time where maybe this slipped through, ended up on the eShop. Nintendo didn't mean for it to. Ultimate Games maybe was like, oh wow, okay, we're gonna go live soon. But then Nintendo probably ripped it back down, and Ultimate Games saying it was an accident, maybe to save face, but technically they wouldn't be lying if that was the case there. So it is an odd thing. We'll see if we get any kind of comment from Nintendo on this one, because it really is a thing with the eShop. And I think Nintendo will eventually have to take a cold hard look at this with the kind of games that are showing up on the eShop. Not even like these kind of games, but just the overall vast amount of just junk that shows up. I mean, do we really need 30 games and like 90% of them are just shovelware junk games? Probably not. In fact, they end up flooding the eShop and burying a lot of good games. So here's hoping that maybe Nintendo has a bit of a wake-up call. I have a feeling their wake-up call is going to be, oh, we should probably make sure we don't accidentally push a game through that wasn't supposed to be. But slot machine game number 533 is perfectly fine. Next up, let's talk about the Xbox Series X and the box art that was revealed. Now, a lot of these, of course, being revealed, not necessarily officially like Sony did, where they just said, hey, here's what the box art looks like, when they showed us Spider-Man Miles Morales, and it was a little strange. It's like the white stripe with the black lettering. With the blue casing, it's still a little off for me. I think it'll grow on me a bit, but the Xbox Series X box art appears to be almost basically the same as the Xbox One. They're going to use the same casing, it seems. They might even use similar discs. I mean, the Xbox Series X should, I think, get 100 gigabyte Blu-ray discs like the PlayStation 5 will be using, but it seems you're going to just get the disc, pop it in, and then the Xbox will go to work from there, pulling whatever it needs from the internet patches with smart delivery and all of that. But the box art, yeah, it says Xbox One, Xbox Series X. It has Xbox at the top. It looks like the same case that we've been buying. I think it is, basically. They do have the optimized for Xbox Series X, and when I look at that, I hope that it's just a sticker on the shrink wrap. They are advertising it there, obviously, as part of almost the box art itself. Like, you buy Watch Dogs, for example, and that is just printed on the box art. I hope that's not the case. I wouldn't even expect it to be. It's probably, like I said, just a sticker that gets slapped on the shrink wrap. This leans heavily into Microsoft's philosophy now going into this generation, is that they want to break down the walls of just these generational systems, right? Like, usually we'd be going into the next-gen systems, and we would just have a full cutoff, with the newer system having backwards compatibility.
Yeah, get rid of that shit.
Not always. The PlayStation 4 didn't, for example. Microsoft wants to make it so that a brand new game that comes out that you would buy for the Series X, you take off the shelf, go home with it, you can also pop it into your Xbox One VCR. I'm going to still say for about the first year and a half to 2 years, and Phil Spencer has even gone on record fairly recently to back up this claim that, hey, we don't want to just create a system and you have to just use that system for the game. That does, however, work to sell consoles, and that's the biggest thing. Microsoft doesn't care as much about the number of consoles sold as much as they do the number of subscriptions. That's why they don't mind if it's on the Series X, the Series S, and the PC, and then even the Xbox One. To them, if they can even get you to play it on your cell phone using Game Pass, they win. It's a different philosophy, obviously, from Sony with the PlayStation 5 and them just straight up cutting off generations for things that we're seeing coming out, like Demon's Souls, of course, or the new Horizon game, but we'll see how either one works out. Microsoft does seem a bit more forward-thinking, I guess, because obviously subscription services have really taken off, and that's what Microsoft is as a company for the most part. Next up, let's talk about Crysis on the Switch. See, with the Switch for a while, we've been used to, oh, it's going to come out on other platforms first, and then it'll come to the Switch eventually, like Doom Eternal. This is different. This is like the complete opposite. In fact, it appears that Crysis is going to be launching on the Switch first. They tweeted this out just to let us know. You may have seen our last update about the Crysis Remastered release, and we have good news for you. We can confirm
Good
that
news,
Crysis
everybody.
is still be coming to the Nintendo Switch on July 23rd. That's weird. Now, what this tells me is they looked at the feedback, and for the most part, people were just happy that Crysis was on the Switch in the first place. Most people were frustrated with the Xbox One X footage that they showed because the original Crysis looked better. For the most part, it seemed very strange what they were showing with that Xbox One X version. So most likely they took the part that people were disappointed with and they're working on that more. But the Switch version, no one was really like mad about. They were like, oh, this is fine. Great. Crysis is on the Switch. Can't believe it. Although it does make me wonder how that version will come out when it's all said and done, because it probably will miss some of the extra work that goes into the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One versions. That could be a patch though. Like, let's say they work out some bugs while they are continuing to improve those versions that still exist in the Switch. I guess just a patch will get pushed, right? That could happen there. The other question is going to be, how long until the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 version come out after the Switch version? Because it is very strange to think about this. We're just not used to it. I am excited to see Crysis on the Switch because it is still a strange thing to consider Crysis becoming a portable game, the original one. Hey, I'm here for it. That's going to be really cool. July 23rd, I will check it out, and I really want to see what they were able to get, specifically Saber Interactive, what they were able to get out of the Switch for Crysis, resolution, frame rate, all that stuff. I'm okay with a lower resolution for this one as long as the frame rate holds steady, because Crysis still looked good way back in the day on my older video card that couldn't push a super high resolution at the time, because Crysis would just beat the video card up like crazy. But as long as it's steady, the game itself will still look good, and it's a good game overall. So exciting stuff there. Don't have to wait much longer, just a couple weeks till Crysis hits the Switch. In our last bit of news, let's talk about those Switch mystery SKUs that have popped up in GameStop's computer system once again. This seems to happen a lot, right? Like, GameStop will just randomly have an image posted that someone, I guess, that works there, like, just took a picture of, and it's like, hey, available SKU for the Nintendo Switch, no title, and it's like dated for the end of this year. We always seem to take that as like a sign that something is coming from Nintendo because they're placeholder SKU. Stop keeping units, of course. Well, Switch Brazil did have an image that went up, and I was curious. I tweeted out just trying to get confirmation on this, and yes, it does appear to be in the system right now, as several people were anonymously able to confirm me that they were there with images and all of that as well. So yes, there are 4 that I've seen that popped up, and we of course have the rumors around a Switch Direct, of some, like a Nintendo Direct event even coming up. I don't even want to call it a Nintendo General Direct because we don't know if that's what it's going to be, but there have been a lot of rumors going on right now about something happening in the next week and a half. July 20th seems to be the date that everyone's pointing to currently, but that is a Monday, and that seems very odd. I'm kind of leaning into it being that week. Seeing SKUs pop up in GameStop's computer system does not necessarily mean that it is absolutely confirmed. They also talk about maintenance of this week coming up as well. So, okay, maintenance for Nintendo's retail side where they have GameStop sell codes. That was something else that popped up, and that was also something I was able to confirm as well with different people at GameStop. So for now, several SKUs popping up. We have no confirmation that these are linked to this event coming up, but there is a chance that they could be, so keep that in mind. It's just, we hear these rumors about Directs, right, coming up, and then these mystery SKUs pop up, and it all starts to kind of work together. So I will tell you this, there probably will be an event pretty soon, but I do caution people with their expectations because there is a chance Nintendo is working to announce things very close to release. So like, for example, they could be releasing something in September, right? Like a Mario game that's rumored, just as an example, but then announce it like in a week or so. So like 2 months out. That's, I think, more or less what Nintendo is trying to do right now, is get closer to the release itself when they announce it, just due to the situation right now with COVID and remote work. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Collinator saying, man, my wife would lose her mind if this Tomb Raider collection came out. She loves Tomb Raider and is wanting to have her name and AKA Lara Croft on her headstone. So, all right, that image that we saw, Nate was able to confirm that it is fake. And the trademark, of course, that we saw is what the Ultimate Tomb Raider Experience. All right, so I'm a little concerned right now about this because that image seemed to have been made along with that trademark. The trademark was spotted, the image was made, put out online. I think it came from 4chan, and it turns out that that is a fake image that was just made because of that. I'm a little concerned that we are thinking that this is a collection when it very well could just be something else. Like, we even kicked around the idea at one point that it could be like, what if it was a VR game? Like the ultimate Tomb Raider experience or whatever, and it's not edition, but experience. And the ultimate experience is to be Lara Croft herself while you're going through tombs. And it's a VR Tomb Raider game. That would be pretty disappointing for a lot of people. And I always tell people, be careful with expectations. And sometimes I tell people to prepare for disappointment. This might be one of those times. But I am going to cross my fingers for this one because I don't want a VR game. I would like a full collection, even if it's of the older Tomb Raider games. I think it'd be amazing. So here's hoping that they do that. They put it on all platforms and they don't announce it at Stadia and it's like a Stadia exclusive. Okay, so what would be worse? All right, let me know. What would be worse? A Stadia exclusive Tomb Raider collection or a VR experience that you can play on your PC and on the PlayStation VR. That's interesting. Let me know about that one. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit the like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today. Where's the eShop and don't get caught? Do you think it's a strange situation that we're to the point now where Nintendo's getting pushed pretty hard by some of these developers with some of these ideas, trying to push the boundaries maybe a bit, maybe make the news? Yeah. Let me know what you think Nintendo should do with that eShop going forward, and if they need to be a little more stringent with the content that they're letting on there and the amount of games that are popping up, of course. Then what do you think about the Xbox Series X box art? Do you think they should have gone with a completely different look, or do you like the idea of it looking like exactly the same as the boxes you've been buying for your Xbox One for the last like 6 or 7 years? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.
In my opinion. Good.
Too far away.
I have never killed the left one before. Like the second giant. First time ever somebody pulled that one.
That item is still recharging.
Yeah. Oh, I know why. Wait. Just realized that. Oh my god, does it? No, wait, no. They they share the see cooldowns, right? Oh no, it replaces honorable medallion. Oh, okay. I just thought that I fucked up like the whole time that you could have two of them at the same time. That well, I knew that at the beginning when they introduced that shit that wasn't possible, but now that I saw the thing like right in here, that looked like you could have two of them at the same time. Oh. Um. What the hell? You pulled the left one again?
Console manufacturers like Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft all understand the importance of a good security system in their hardware, but unfortunately for them, almost all of their systems have been compromised by hackers, and with the imminent release of next generation, the same questions are asked. But these days, thanks to modern cryptography, hacking consoles is much harder. But it's not impossible. It's almost inevitable that some exploit or loophole will be found to allow unauthorized access into a game console. When we think about console modding, the earliest system you probably would consider is the Sony PlayStation 1. The amount of 6-wire mod chip devices that were installed in PS1s easily go into the millions, and it was a commonplace for many people to own a chipped PS1 because it was convenient and easy to use, and if you had access to a CD burner, it was even better. Piracy was a massive thing on the PlayStation, and with CD burners becoming more affordable over time, the practice then moved over to every other console that used optical media. But the reality is, the practice of hacking or reverse engineering has been around in computing in the 70s and game consoles like the Atari VCS from the early 80s. And we've covered some of this history before with the early anti-piracy and reverse engineering with Nintendo and their infamous 10NES lockout chip, later known as the CIC chip, which mitigated the flow of unauthorized third-party bootlegs and hacked games for years. But this would not be the last time a video game company would attempt to reverse engineer a game console.
Many people in many different areas of video games have utilized reverse engineering tools in the past, and in some instances, it's actually game development companies themselves.
In the 90s, the console wars were in full swing with the 16-bit era. It was Sega versus Nintendo in a battle of world domination. Both the Sega Genesis and the Super NES were cartridge-based, but interestingly enough, while the Super NES contained an updated variant of the 10NES lockout chip known as the CIC, the Sega Genesis had nothing at all. Well, except for two things: region lockout and licensing. Region lockout simply means that a different region game to the console you own would not boot. Licensing simply means if you developed a game and you wanted it published by Sega, there would be a cost associated in doing so, usually around $15 per cartridge. Licensing with Sega also meant giving away some of your freedoms as well. And as you can imagine, this cost could quickly skyrocket. NBA Jam on the Genesis sold around 2 million copies, so Midway would have had to pay Sega at least $15 million in licensing fees alone. But not everyone was happy with the licensing arrangement that Sega had put in place. 1 year after the Genesis had released in North America, one company, Electronic Arts, wanted to bring its catalogue of games to the Genesis, but they were very concerned about the cost of licensing their games with Sega and set out to do something about it themselves. It's important to mention that Electronic Arts had a very successful market in the home computer space, particularly on the Amiga and Atari ST, with games such as Populous, PGA Tour Golf, The Immortal, Marble Madness, and others. Electronic Arts were skilled developers that knew the 68,000 architecture very well, which is the exact same processor that ran on the Sega Genesis, and looked to bring their portfolio over, but they quickly hit a snag. You see, they didn't want to pay the outrageous licensing costs that Sega was quoting. So to work around this, once EA's president Trip Hawkins learned that there was no security lockout on the Genesis, he gave the green light to his development team to build games for it. But how would they? At the time, EA did not have any Sega Genesis development kits on hand. Sega was struggling to keep up with demand, and EA unfortunately had missed out. Very hard to imagine if we consider who EA is today, but at the time this did not deter them. They were able to acquire an official development kit from an unknown source, and formed two separate groups. The first group was to examine the hardware and reverse engineer it, while the second was in charge of documenting the findings, writing manuals, and building in-house development tools. This was an entirely clean room project. In other words, no software, libraries, or documentation were ever used from the development kit itself. This approach was done to mitigate any potential legal issues. After some time, EA's engineers had completely reverse engineered the hardware, documented what it had found, and had built its own in-house development kit and tools. Now it was possible to build games for the Genesis, which did not require any involvement from Sega. The first two ports developed by EA were Populous and Budokan. With the leverage of a custom development kit, Trip Hawkins went to Sega and asked them for a fair licensing deal rather than the $8 to $10 price that they were charging per cartridge. Sega was initially furious. They wanted to sue EA for what they thought was illegally reverse engineering the hardware. But Hawkins didn't back down. He threatened to release their games without a license anyway. In the end, they made the right choice of allowing EA free to release as many games as they wanted and did not require Sega's approval to do so. EA would also control manufacturing of their game cartridges, which can be identified by the distinct yellow tab, slightly thicker game case, and artwork and theming in exchange for a significantly reduced licensing cost. Although Sega and EA's partnership was very successful, it left Sega in a tight spot. The system had no anti-piracy or lockout measures in place, and Sega had grown concerned about piracy with bootleg cartridges appearing in the Taiwanese markets.
So once EA and Sega had come to a license agreement and Electronic Arts was able to publish their own games on the Sega Genesis, Sega realized that they needed to come up with a plan for this to not happen again.
In 1991, Sega made a small but important revision to the console that would lock out any unauthorized third-party access. Known as the Trademark Security System, or TMSS, it was a small block of code that was added to Genesis boot ROMs, with header code that would be added to every licensed game cartridge. This approach was very similar to Nintendo's 10NES, but perhaps not as sophisticated. TMSS works something like this. When a game cartridge is inserted and the console turned on, TMSS checks the ROM at hex location 100 for the word Sega. If located, the code will then be instructed to display the string produced by or under license from Sega Enterprises Limited. But there's also a second part of this check. The ROM must contain this instruction. If we convert the hex value, the string Sega is sent to hexadecimal address A14000. This is an area of I/O memory that will enable the VDP or video display processor. If both of these checks are satisfied, then the TMSS validation or anti-piracy check has been successful and the game can boot as normal. Now you're probably thinking, this doesn't seem like a very secure anti-piracy check. It could be easily patched, bypassed or replicated. The thing is, it didn't need to be. Both the TMSS and header code were copyrighted by Sega, and because a trademark was generated every time the console was activated, this means that a publisher that tried to produce an unlicensed game that activated the TMSS was in violation of copyright law and trademark law. Another company that had developed games on the Amiga, known as Accolade, had approached Sega for a licensing contract, but like EA, they found the deal too restrictive. So they set out to reverse engineer the hardware, but they took a different approach to EA. Instead, they used retail hardware and 3 games. Accolade engineers reverse engineered the games and looked for similarities between them, all while documenting their findings. Armed with this information, they built custom in-house development tools that would facilitate making their own games. But what they didn't know during this time, Sega was rolling out TMSS on their newer hardware revisions. And when they found out that their game Ishido Way of the Stone would not boot thanks to TMSS, they quickly reverse engineered the check and added the required code to activate TMSS in subsequent game releases. Sega took Accolade to court in late 1991 for trademark infringement and copyright violation, but Accolade would countersue, arguing fair use. Initially, Sega would win on all counts, and the judge ordered Accolade to cease production of games in development and pull its games from shelves within 10 days. But Accolade would appeal the decision, and the Ninth Circle Court of Appeals ruled in Accolade's favour and deemed the reverse engineering effort valid. The Court of Appeals stated that no proprietary Sega code was ever used, and because Accolade purchased retail hardware for the reverse engineering effort, no copyright laws were broken. But the biggest blow to Sega was since there was no way to boot any Genesis game without triggering TMSS, Accolade did not violate any trademark laws at all. They had no other choice. In the end, Sega vs. Accolade was a landmark court case that let console manufacturers and game publishers know that reverse engineering of software and hardware would be perfectly acceptable, as long as the hardware or software had been legitimately obtained and no original or proprietary code was present in the final product. And this is one of the reasons why cleanroom emulation is perfectly legal and why reverse engineering is an acceptable practice. Even the NSA has made their open source reverse engineering tool Ghidra available to the public.
Reverse engineering, as long as it's above board, can be utilized for many different use cases, and we've seen the NSA actually release their own reverse engineering tool that they used in-house known as Ghidra. And the main driver, I guess, for the NSA would be to identify security exploits. But reverse engineering tools like IDA Pro and Ghidra can be used in many different use cases. Everything from, ROM hacking, security exploits, but also just to peek around and take a look at code and see how things have been done. We talk about a game like Final Fantasy VIII, for example, that most likely used some form of reverse engineering tools to get that game back up and running on modern systems. And I think it's definitely something that we'll see more of as time goes by, especially with lost and old source code that just no longer exists.
What he's talking
or is not in a complete state.
What he was just talking about, like the Final Fantasy VIII thing, he was talking about that because Final Fantasy VIII was unreleased on newer consoles for a very, very long time now. The reason was because the source code actually got lost. But suddenly, like last year, the game suddenly got a release date. And it's probably, I think they found like an unfinished build of the game on some kind of hard drive. And also they reverse engineered the basically the rest of the game with one of those programs. And that's how they made it. I think that's how that happened. Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
But guys, let me know what you thought about this video in the comments below. I think it's an interesting topic to go back and revisit. We're essentially talking about the birth of legal and clean room reverse engineering in the courts, and I think it's definitely something that I find very interesting, and I hope you guys did as well. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comments below, guys, and if you liked it, you know what to do. Leave me a thumbs up, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.
Champion of Lordaeron, the dead shall have their day.
he's saved. Follow me. I know the way through.
Good day to you.
Yes, I'm glad I could get you. What is this sorcery? Dennis appears to have more than Scourge in his arsenal. We should make haste. More vile sorcery. Be ready for anything. Let's move on. Watch your backs. They have us surrounded in this hole.
So it's Sunday, and I thought we'd have a little bit of fun today restoring a GameCube that was probably on its way to the dumpster. Now, there are broken systems all over eBay, and a lot of times people will buy more current systems, but I thought since I haven't really worked on a ton of GameCubes since when I really started working on systems, we were up to like the 360, PS3 era. Occasionally I would see PS2s, but like GameCubes, I really wouldn't see too often. However, they have been going up more and more in value, and I thought it would be interesting to take one apart, fix it, and then put it back together with a special casing that I managed to find online a little while ago, and I thought this would be a good spot to use it. So I went ahead and grabbed one, and it's off of eBay, of course. I have not looked at it yet, and I thought we would just have some fun seeing if we can get it to work and look pretty good when it's all done. Oh, also, if you enjoy some of these like restoring videos, let me know down in the comments and like the video before you head out. Well, at least they packaged it pretty well. A lot of bubble wrap around it, plenty of paper, which is good news. Even though the system doesn't work, I'd like it to at least show up in the condition that they left their house in.
Silver
Alright,
one.
so they packaged it pretty
The silver
well,
one is so
I must
fucking
say.
ugly.
Overall, looking at it, it's scuffed up, it's kind of dirty around the edges, but it's not like chipped or broken or damaged in that way, which is nice. Like, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to. Okay, this is kind of sticky. Yeah, so like we obviously have a sticky. These get sticky a lot though, they're pretty easy to clean. Now, oh, that feels weird. So, from what I was told with the description, it does not read games at all.
And also, I don't know exactly why. There's probably a lot of reasons for that, but basically, all the casuals always had the silver one. The real people, like the real players, the real gamers, always had the black and violet ones, or purple. I don't know why. It probably has to do with when the the points and times were when the consoles were released. But it was really, really, really weird. Yeah. If you saw a silver one, you could be kind of sure that that person maybe had SSX and like 3 other games, like a few like basketball games, and it was basically the prototype Xbox 360 casual person console. It was weird. And yeah, as I described before, the actual like gamer dudes always, well, the gamer people always had either the purple one or the black one.
It still has all the doors on the bottom, which is nice. Like, that's all there. I think you could probably just clean this casing up really well and use it, but I have, like I said, a different casing in mind for it that I'm gonna change it out with. But I might save this casing, and we could even maybe like sand it down and do like try to paint it or something for a future project. We do have a chip right here though. That is on the bottom part of the casing, however, but the top part seems okay. Okay, so a quick test. We can actually just pop a disc in. I have 007 Agent Under Fire, and just see if it even spins the disc up or tries to read it. Turns on, and it's not even spinning the disc even a little bit. Yeah, so that's interesting. I wonder why it's not even spinning. Usually it'll at least spin the disc, but it's not even doing that. I know there's like a sensor that has to be pressed down when you close it. I almost wonder if it's just not even pressing that. Yeah, it's not even trying, so that's the first step, obviously, is to get the disc spinning and see if we can get it working from there. Now, I did also get a brand new laser, and if it ends up having to come to it, we'll just change the laser out with a brand new one, so we'll have a nice fresh laser inside. But the GameCube itself is pretty easy to get apart. There's not like a ton of pieces to get the lid off. It's just getting to like the motherboard and other parts can be a bit of a pain because there are so many screws to go through. Now, of course, you'll want a game bit driver because Nintendo decided to use these weird screws for it. They, of course, couldn't go with like, you know, just regular Phillips head screws, although I guess Microsoft used Torx drivers for theirs. Sony was the only normal one who used Phillips head screws. Alright, there we go. It only takes 4 screws to get the top lid off, which is, again, nice to get inside pretty fast. So the way this works is when you close the lid on your GameCube, the system needs to know that it's closed, and we have sensors right back here that run to the drive, and when these get pressed down, the laser will start to activate knowing that the lid has been closed. So if we plug it in and just press these down, we should see some sort of action here by this laser. Okay, so it's on. It thinks the door is open currently. So we do get some action from the laser. You can see it kind of moving right here, attempting to read and focus, but nothing seems to happen from there. Let me grab, like, you can usually see some sort of kind of reddish light coming out of it. So unfortunately, we're not getting anything reading from the laser itself, and I guess the next step, we'll start pulling this apart and looking inside of it. Like I said, I have a brand new laser if we have to change it out, but there is a chance that there's something else wrong with it. Now, something I'm noticing here is that there is quite a bit of rust. It appears to almost be from liquid inside, so we'll have to keep that in mind as we go a bit further down. We got to check out the board and all of that to see if we have an issue that might even be causing it not to read. Well, it looks like there is some corrosion down here on the board itself, and that does lead to the drive. So there is a chance that that is the major issue right there that's causing it not to read. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull this board out and attempt to scrub away that corrosion and see if we can get it working. Yeah, I think it's fair to say there may have been some liquid damage in this GameCube. Oh man, it definitely got the business from something. I don't know what they spilled into it, but hey, I'll give this GameCube credit. It's still powered on. These things are tanks, but I mean, nothing's invincible, right? So let's clean this up here and see if the laser starts to read, maybe. So I managed to clean up the board pretty well, especially around where the drive plugs in. The bottom casing is like rusted like crazy, right? Like that is that's pretty ugly. So what I can probably do is either try to sand down some of the rust here with like a Dremel, or I can end up trying to find maybe a different metal plate for the bottom. For now, I'm gonna use it because it shouldn't really do much to this since it's completely dry, and I wiped it down to get rid of any extra, I guess, moisture or anything that would be on it. But I will look for a separate case. I'm just gonna use it temporarily as a way to kind of screw this board in and test it. All right, let's see what happens now. I don't have the front board plugged in, so we shouldn't have any light there. So we're still not getting anything from it. I'm going to open up the laser now to see if there's anything inside of that could be causing issues. Also, it does look like our laser may have been hit with some liquid as well. So we might as well open this up to see how bad it is. And if it really is that bad, maybe we'll just change the laser out then. So the board definitely received some liquid, but it didn't get on really any of the chips. It kind of started to come through the screw holes. Might be a little bit right here that we can just kind of clean off. But for the most part, it's not as bad, at least on this part, as I thought it would be. But it also was sealed up with like metal over it and all that. So that makes some sense. But we can check out the laser to see if that has any type of like rusting or anything on it. So it actually looks like the motor here that's supposed to move the laser, yeah, it looks like it caught quite a bit of liquid damage. It's like completely rusted on the bottom here. So we'll have to see. I think I might have an extra motor. I know I have another laser, but this honestly might be the main issue right here. Okay, so good news. The older GameCube that I had, the silver one that I changed out with the SD card, I did keep its assembly. So I have most of the parts here, which is good. From what I remember though, the laser in this one was a little rough. So I'm still gonna go ahead and change this laser out, but this should have a full assembly. And just holding on to this, by the way, I can tell immediately that it's a bit different than this one here, which has seemingly seized up. So to me, it does appear that this is the main issue right there. But while I have this assembly here, I may as well just go ahead and use this one and just change the laser out. Now, believe it or not, this is actually the first time I've changed a laser out in a GameCube. I've changed these assemblies out, but actually going down into the assembly and changing out the laser is kind of strange. Like I said, I've never done it before, so this should be fun. Now, the good news about these is typically lasers will work the same way across most devices. Usually you'll have one railing where it slides into place. So this side is open. You can pretty much take it out that way. And then you have one bar going along here where it actually wraps around, and you would need to remove it starting from this side. And usually there's like an arm that screws into it that's plastic with some teeth so that it can be guided by the motor. So it looks like this is the side I would have to unscrew in order to get this laser to come out. Yeah, so it popped right out very, very easily. We'll take this railing and save that. And it looks like we do indeed have this plastic here, although it's a bit different. It looks like it has a spring right here that wraps around, so that might be a little harder than just having a screw that goes in. That actually wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It kind of clips around. We have a spring here, and it essentially keeps tension on it, so this can move if it needs to. It's definitely an interesting design compared to what I'm used to with other lasers. Usually it'll screw in, it'll just be in place. This has a little bit of give to it. So I think this would be a bit more sturdy. That could be because the laser was right there and they're worried that someone might accidentally press on it, or of course the whole tray gets pressed down when you pop the disc out. That might just be why it's kind of in this setup. So it's kind of like this floating design. It can pretty much move if it needs to, as the drive does. Okay, we just slid it back into place. A couple of screws, and I think we're good. We've replaced the laser at that point with a new one. I'll have to put the board in. We have to solder these two wires in for the motor. Otherwise, though, I think we're good to test it after that. So I put it back together just enough so we can drop a game on here and try it out. I did also plug a controller in because I figure we'll go ahead and check it out here, kind of to see if it'll actually read the game. Okay, so we do have a picture here. We'll try 007 again, and of course we can pop it on here, and we can press the sensors down, and we should hopefully see this thing do something. Remember before we just saw the laser try to focus over here, and that was it? But after changing out all of the parts and seeing the laser move freely, we should at least get the disc to spin, and we'll see what happens from there. So here we go. So we can see the laser. Disc is starting to spin. That's a good sign. It's also moving. And let's go up here. Ah, there's 007. All right. See, that actually That seemed to read pretty quick. Hold on, let's try this again. So we just ejected the disc. We'll pop it back down. We'll see how long this takes to read. And there it goes. That's pretty good. I'd say that's pretty fast. The laser that we put in there definitely is working well. And it starts right up there. Alright, so far so good for the laser itself. Let's try one other game just to make sure. So I'm going to go ahead and eject this guy. We can even press the little reset button there. And I guess we'll try... I have Prince of Persia here. The first one, Sands of Time. So let's go ahead and try this one out. We'll press this guy down. Start reading. And... there we go. Prince of Persia. Okay, so all those pieces in there. I had to clean the board up pretty good because there was a lot of corrosion around it. Different motor inside, and I also, like I said, replaced the laser with a new one just to make sure. It seems to be working well now, which is great news. But there is still one other thing I wanted to do to it, and that has to do with the casing itself. So, of course, we got it with the silver case. It was kind of chipped up on the side, scuffed up here and there. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be based on the pictures, but I figure instead of putting it back together in this boring shell, why not do something a little different? And that is where this casing comes in. This is the official Starlight GameCube case. It was released in Japan, I think by Toys R Us. There weren't that many of these sold. There weren't. I think it was like 5,000 or so. It wasn't that many. And I thought it would be neat to take this casing, which is original, is a legitimate original case, and drop it on here so we can kind of complete the look overall, the restoration from this junky silver chipped up case into this nice Starlight case. Now this case I did grab on eBay, and it was strange to see it pop up just as it was. It's like, oh, just the casing? Because it still has all of the doors on the bottom. It is a legitimate case. Like you can see it has the model and everything here. These only came out in Japan, so this would of course be for the Japan model. It wouldn't play any games in the US, North America, but because we're going to put a North American board in here, it'll just have this nice Starlight look to it, which is great. Still has both of the rubber feet on the bottom here, still has the ATI sticker on it. Does have some scuffs on the front, but like I said, this is an original casing. It's not like an aftermarket one, so I can expect a little bit of that, and I got it at a pretty good price just for the casing. Now it looks like inside they did have some screws for us. Those game bit screws were still screwed in there. We have plenty of other screws here though, so that's not a big deal. Has the back plastic bit and then also the front, which the front looks really clean by the way, so I'm pretty happy about that. And we also have the memory card doors here. So all I have to do is take the internals from that silver one, we'll drop it in here, and we should have a really nice looking Starlight case when it's all done. Now the only unfortunate thing right now is I don't have any of the metals to replace the insides where it's like has like the rust and all of that. I think what I'll do is I will find some metals and change them out afterwards, but for now I will use those rusted pieces just to put it all together, and then I'll come back when I locate some metal pieces for the inside that match up, because there are different models of the GameCube and those metal pieces don't actually match up. Like I have one for a later model that has that digital port on the back, but those do not seem to work with this one.
Oh, come on.
Anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for the eBay water-damaged GameCube. It's pretty messed up, yes, but it is technically fixable with enough spare parts, and I did have to put a lot of spare parts into this to get it working. Fortunately, despite that motherboard eating quite a bit of liquid damage, it still works, and that's pretty impressive. But the GameCube itself is a fairly strong system in terms of durability. I mean, they put a handle on it, so they obviously knew it was going to get beaten up. and I do like the Starlight case. Finding the Starlight controller to complete it is pretty difficult. That alone can be over $100, but getting the case at a pretty good price and finding a project for it was a lot of fun, so I still enjoyed doing this. I just obviously wouldn't recommend anyone to buy an as-is GameCube off of eBay, since this wasn't even advertised to have water damage, just that it wasn't reading any games. Just keep that in mind. Thanks guys for watching. Let me know what you think about the newly made Starlight GameCube here. If you guys liked the video on the way out, if you enjoyed it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you next time.
Prisoners shall not be freed. The word of Malachos is law.
Put it inside of them. The best idea. Oh no, shit. Ah! God damn it.
I must get closer.
Prisoners shall not go free. Word of Malagos is law. None shall escape.
It is not ready yet. I need mana first. Mana is needed. Mana is low. I'm out of range. Mana is needed. My mana is low. I need mana first.
Oh. Eh.
I have many, many wares. Farewell, friend of the Grummles.
Too far away.
Many deals for a friend of the Grummles. Like you.
I cannot use that item yet.
Prisoners shall not go free. Word of Malagos is law.
That item is still recharging.
Fuck! No! God damn it.